I think what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
And so, be humble, be nice, listen, and just don't be a dick to people. When starting, and I'm sure even running like huge conglomerate businesses, there are times when you're going, oh, I could just give this up now and take an easy route and, do something else.
James, I don't quite know how we got here, but we're in the third month of 2025 already. How is the year treating you and everyone at Flows?
It's treating us really well. I agree with you. It's gone way too quickly, and it felt like we were in ice mid-January last week, and now we're kind of pushing towards the end of Q1, which, feels that it's come too fast.
I heard you describe at ICE that setting up your own startup, Flows in your case, was, to quote you, horribly daunting. What did you mean by that? Was it because of the sort of financial considerations and the burden that comes with that? Was it getting investment? Was it just setting off on your own? What was horribly daunting about it? Or all three of those?
All of the above, and probably a ton of other things. I think being a first-time founder meant that kind of every step was a new one. Like, it was a complete unknown, to be honest. I think where I was comfortable in making the decision was from quite early with the support of Happy Hour. And in that, Robin Reed, who I'd known prior at Gig, and obviously kind of, he's got a fantastic background in founding companies and making sort of a lot of success of that. So I think knowing that we had that obviously financial support, but also kind of experience as a support to us as sort of our chairman, meant like, okay, there's a lot of scary things about this, but let's go for it.
Yeah, give it a go. Where did the idea for Flows come from then? You sat on a beach somewhere and you thought, I tell you what, or was it a long sort of gestation?
I think it was quite a long gestation. I mean, myself, Mike and Andrew worked together prior to starting Flows, and in what we were doing, which was sort of platform business for operators, we saw limitations kind of in not just the technology that we were sort of using or selling them, but kind of broadly speaking across industry. And there was no real way of kind of mitigating that, or at least mitigating that at speed. Yet the kind of ask and request from clients, from operators or affiliates, wherever it was that they wanted more and more, and they wanted it sort of now. So we started looking at ways that, we could deliver that in an agnostic fashion. So not as many of these kind of products or tools are tied into a single company or a single platform. So actually we host something in the cloud that can easily integrate with kind of anything. And that would be a way of allowing people to build. And then we went down that path of no code and automation because, obviously a way of building something quickly is if you don't need to get right into the complexities of writing lines of code. Mm-hmm. And it enables then like more people to innovate. Because I think, and as we said when we launched it, like so many people have brilliant ideas, but don't have the ability to execute on them. Mm. I'm still like, I can't code. So I may have an idea, probably not a brilliant one, but an idea. But then to execute on that, I'm relying, or would have been relying on so many other people. That's kind of where Flow started coming about.
How easy is it to be a startup in this industry? Were you confident that, I guess, having been sales background, that sort of thing, did that help when you were going out for that sort of thing?
Yeah, probably a bit. I think Robin obviously knows the three of us quite well. So was comfortable in that. And also, again, like as I said at the start, he knows the industry so well. He's himself built a lot of businesses from kind of affiliate operator to supplier. So I think absolutely saw the need for what we wanted to do with what's now turned out to be Flows. So I don't know if you can call it lucky, or I'd say having all of those things come into play meant, it probably wasn't as hard as it is for some to get that first round of funding, because, again, a lot of good ideas, but to actually get them off the ground is hard because you need the capital. Then going out for the later raise that we did, because we've only raised twice. So we've maintained a very kind of efficient and lean, I guess, team build, been very careful on spend throughout, but sort of the latter one was certainly more consuming, and a lot of lessons learned there.
When you get that money in, is it like a charity totalizer, but the total is going down rather than going up? And have you always got an eye on when is this going to run out, or are you more relaxed as a person?
We've always had that runway in mind. You've got that kind of cash flow is kind of key, and you're checking in with that. I say almost daily. I'm speaking with our finance and kind of how we're doing there. We obviously now we're at that stage where we have quite a few clients, so it's sort of how well are they paying, and again that all sort of feeds into it. But even now, as we start edging towards profitability, full transparency, we're not quite there, but I think for a startup tech company, we're probably a lot further ahead in the journey than some, and some
on the right path.
Yeah, and like a lot of burning huge amounts of money. Like we've seen really good revenue increase year on year of I think like 99%.
That'll do.
Yeah, which is like kind of frustrating not to be 100, but maybe it is. Maybe we need to go back and do some accounting again.
Perfectionist.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like we're on the right growth path and everything. But again, you always want to know kind of, okay, if bad things hit the fan,
we can swear you're all right.
Okay. If shit hits the fan, like
Yeah.
at what point does that happen, and when do alarm bells need to go off? And I can say sort of with confidence we're in a good place right now, which is nice. I think because I've always in my head had us as a startup, and then someone mentioned I think at ICE like, well actually maybe now you're moving into scale up, being kind of 3.5 years old now.
Tell me about your background. How did you get to where you are today?
Starting in media, initially sort of say properly in the industry with IGB and what became IGB and Clarion after the acquisition. I think at that point you sort of take a thought of kind of, okay, I'm going to work in this type of business within the industry all my life, or I'm at a point where I could stay within industry but sort of go to a different part, and made that decision to go and join Gig at the time because I wanted to get more client side from the point that I had been on, and very much in the technical part of that as well. So I suppose as kind of job roles took a step down, but potentially kind of alleviate, my career sort of after that.
So I guess did it give you a kind of good helicopter view of the industry then, being in publications and events, because you get to see operator side, supplier side, affiliate
100%.
side, the whole thing. So, and then you sort of cherry picked where you wanted to go thereafter. So you weren't wedded to publications or events. It wasn't like your life's passion or anything like that. Or?
No, I absolutely enjoyed it when I was there.
Yeah.
And for anyone that knows the team, like great team. Absolutely enjoyed it. But as you said, it gave such a good broad experience. I always say like that helicopter kind of view of the industry.
Yeah. And was it quite a steep learning curve with Gig? Very different to presumably what you'd done previously.
Yeah, it was. I mean, in a sense of kind of really getting under the bonnet of a platform kind of tech. It was, but a really enjoyable one. And I think kind of one that I guess grabbed with both hands and enjoyed a lot.
Down your LinkedIn page at the bottom, under what can only be described as a very humble brag, is project that says Marathon des Sables, which I think you raced in 2016, if I've done my research correctly, or around
2017.
2017, I do beg your pardon. Right.
But training was all 2016.
Okay.
In fairness, a full year of kind of no drinking.
Which for those that don't know, obviously, is an ultra marathon that happens to be in the Sahara Desert. And not only did you compete in that, of the sort of 1,300 or whatever it was competitors, you finished in the top 100. So I'm guessing that was a massive achievement in your life, not necessarily career, but life.
Yeah.
And how did that come about? And what was it like to do? Why did you want to do that?
Well, up to that point, I've been keeping myself quite fit. I'd then done a couple of marathons. You know what? Actually, no. A friend gave me a DVD. I don't know why, but of James Cracknell, who did it. So he was at the time he was the fastest Brit to do the Marathon des Sables. He was actually beaten by a young army officer that was there on the year I did it. I watched it. I was like, it looks insane, but it does look quite cool. And for me at the time, I was thinking, here's an opportunity to see if I push myself, how far could I push my body? I didn't really know, I guess, physically my limits, and also mentally, right? Because when you're doing these ultras and distance running, there's the physical part and you need sort of your body to be able to hold up to it, but the mental as well. You spend a long time in your own mind.
I can imagine. And
it was a point of, I think I just got married, so, potentially kids were on the way, which they were then after that. But it was like, okay, last chance while I still had a bit of youth. to potentially do something like that. And a good friend of mine was like, yeah, we'll definitely do it together. And I remember calling him. I was like, right, I've sent paperwork in, I've signed up, been accepted. I was like, you done it? He's like, oh, about that. It's like, I'm not actually going to do it. It's like, you fucker. So, well, I am now. I've got my head into it. And so that's my North Star for the next year.
And what was it like physically and mentally then? What did you learn about yourself, I guess? Is that, were the takeaways from it you think that's changed my life?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is to some extent transferable into then starting a company. I mean, it is like an endurance race to an extent. You know, there's highs, there's lows, but you know, in the lower times, you teach yourself to kind of keep going.
Yeah.
And of that, like in the training, so I did just over a year of training prior to that, where I did a lot of ultra marathons. So like one of them, I think it was like 100 miles, and you know, you get some pretty low times, and it's kind of, fuck it, it's easy to give up if I need to. I'll just, you know, call it in, who cares type thing. But you sort of don't, you find a way to pick yourself up and you keep going. And I think again, when starting, and I'm sure even running like huge conglomerate businesses, there are times when you're going, oh, I could just give this up now and take an easy route and, you know, do something else. But you have to go, actually, no, like we're sticking at this. We know it's the right thing. And it's, yeah, I think a lot was learned from that I found to be absolutely like useful in the last 3 and a bit years.
Top 100 finish. I mean, that is pretty incredible, I would have said. You must have put in an awful lot of training to do that. Or did you find it easy? Or
no, not at all. And I did, again, like none of it was just because I kind of, you know, woke up and was able to do it tomorrow. That was said like over a year of training, where a lot of the time was training twice a day. So like morning before work, in the gym, in the evening, then kind of hill sprints and running. Things like heat chambers.
yeah,
So a lot of the universities in London have what essentially is like saunas with running machines in. And you have to go into those and run for an hour to acclimatise with the thermometer up your arse, because that's the best way to measure core temperature.
Nice.
So they basically know before you do if you're going to collapse.
yeah.
So that took a bit of getting used to. I can imagine anyone.
Yeah.
And then having to learn to run with 10k on your back as well,
Yeah.
because you carry all your kind of clothes and food for the race,
Yeah.
and sleeping bag and everything like that. So
And is fitness and health a big part of your life now? And do you think that kind of helps you as a CEO? There's a lot of stuff on LinkedIn at the moment about what people are doing outside of their sort of business life, but how it's helping them in their business life. And I'm not casting aspersions, I'm not criticising people. It's great, but it's a bit of a thing, isn't it? The kind of fitness thing.
Like,
How
so I
do you
think
feel
there's a
about
lot of it it's just a bit twatty at times, and the way kind of, I think sometimes you read how people put it across, like, you know, wake up 3 hours before I go to bed, you know, have 1 coffee a month, and that's all I live off. And it's like, that's why I'm the best person in the world.
Yeah.
For me, it's more about balance, like almost see, you know, health, life, whatever it is, as kind of a credit card, right? So I'm more than happy to go and spend, as in go out drinking of a night, eat some crap food at times, but you have to pay it off. So that's kind of where I sort of try and bank a bit, I guess, by, you know, I do wake up, not at 5, but like 5:30 in the morning, go to the gym, and that just starts the day. And I sort of, you know, I find then like later in the day, I'm kind of happier to do other bits. I do a bit of intermittent fasting, but that's more like I just eat in a short space throughout the day. So I think it's like 12 till 6. But then if you see me, I'm eating like probably way more than I would have done if I just kept to a normal eating habit. So I'm sure it's not actually doing any good, but at least mentally it makes me think it is.
You strike me as someone who pushes very hard, both kind of physically, as we talked about with Miranda Sabler, but obviously business-wise as well. Are you able to celebrate wins, or are you always looking for the next win?
Definitely celebrate wins, looking also at what is the next win. But I think, you know, you have like small wins and big wins, and it's like any business is, or even like in your personal life, right? It's like, hey, here's my goals. You know, one might be a small win to, you know, pay for a holiday. The big win's to buy a house, sort of thing. And I think same in business. It's kind of, you know, as we're going, there are client signings we want to get. There's some product releases we want to get, and then the bigger ones are like, right, we want to get to profitability in, you know, this quarter, and targets like that. So we celebrate that, but also like getting into and understanding the losses, because I think, you know, there's obviously a lot more learning in times from the loss than there is from the win.
So what are you like as a CEO, would you say? How would people describe you as a boss?
Really great and very humble. We're a small team, so we're I think kind of reasonably close as a group. We're still just under 20, I think, or thereabouts as 20. A lot of the team we've had from quite early on in this journey. Like, we've maintained a very, I guess, sort of lean and manageable way of working. But with that in mind, like, everyone's very good at sticking to their swim lanes. And I think, again, as a startup / now, I guess, scale up, if I want to say that, like, we jump into roles where needed. So there's times kind of I've gone in and played a role that isn't necessarily CEO role, HR half the time, finance before we had finance. I hope everyone seems quite happy. People tend to stay with us. Very open. Like, anyone can kind of ping and chat, and we do a lot together. We get together and go and have sort of fun and yeah.
Interesting. Well, look, it's been a very interesting few years from the start of the company to where you are now, and I'm sure it's going to be another interesting few years coming up as well. But appreciate you joining us today. Before I let you go, we always ask our iGaming execs 3 quick-fire questions at the end, and you're not allowed to hesitate or deviate. But if I was to put you on the spot, who's your favourite musician or band?
Yeah, Woody, I'm going to say Eminem.
Eminem. Cool.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And speaking of M&Ms, the food-based, what would be your last meal on earth, do you think?
Oh, steak, 100%.
Yeah. With anything in particular, or cooked a particular way? Or?
No, like, really good medium rare ribeye.
Yep.
Happy with that. No sauce needed.
Fair enough. And if you could give one piece of advice to iGaming execs coming up in this industry, maybe something that you've been giving yourself on your career journey, what would that be?
Don't be a dick. Like, genuinely, I mean, I wouldn't say a small industry, but I think what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
And so, be humble, be nice, listen, and yeah, just don't be a dick to people.
Good advice. James King, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.